Okay.
We want to share a screen. It's been a long day. Okay, and then
I need to go behind that.
Present.
Oh, perfect. And then maybe we can, yes.
I think there's this one. There we go. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I got pretty good here.
I see that.
Shuffleboard. I used to play shuffleboard in college. There was this like bar called Second Wind in San Diego, and it was open later than the other bars. So we would go there like at the end of the night. Play a lot of shuffleboard.
They have a digital.
I'm actually really good at it.
Yeah.
All these hidden skills.
Hey, you get this check, Cindy?
I will be glad to take that check.
Come on,
Thank you, Nathan.
come on, Red.
No, you don't want to go. You don't want to go. You don't want to go.
There's so many lovely puppies in this place.
Pretty drunk.
Yeah. Are we waiting for anyone else, do you think?
Yeah,
We also have Kenzie.
she said she's coming down, but she's in the middle of a couple of different things, so it could be
We can
a
break.
while. I think
Start.
it'd probably be
Yeah.
safe to start without her.
Okay.
And Laura's on vacation. I haven't been able to get hold of her today.
I don't think she's coming. Kenzie's trying to finish something.
Yeah, I think we could start.
We're at work recording too, so.
Yeah, I found it last night, but I think my internet connection died at halfway point or something. It starts spinning its wheels.
I thought it was just an English class, and I didn't really feel I needed to take one of those, but. And they were like, no, it's more like this. I was like, oh, that I could take.
Yeah. So I wrote down this quote. It's just something that I believe in. And before we start, I would like you just to write a couple of sentences about what you understand from these words. Anything, and you won't have to share. It's just a reflection on what has been said when I say, I am the source and creator of the present situation, because I can frame it in specific words. So it's a very powerful thing when you realize that the words that you use can actually create the situation, whether it's negative or positive. And I'm thinking very specifically of being in the classroom, where the words that you choose create the tone in the classroom. Because whether it's forgotten homework or whether something's happened that shouldn't have happened, you can actually create a situation that is solution oriented just by the words that you choose. You can't go back and change what happened. The dog ate my homework. Can't change that. But the way I can create the present situation is actually embedded in language. And this is why business skills and business language is so very powerful, because it really can create a situation that moves things forward that is maybe financially successful, maybe personally successful, but everything to do with words is an immense power. And last time we spoke about the triangle and how you have credibility when you write, if you understand just some of these basic rules. And trust me, we all sit there and look at a sentence and go, oh, I don't quite know why this doesn't sound right. And then you just change it around and it sounds fine. So it's not like you have to know all of these terms for all of these things that you might never possibly use out of an English classroom. But it is good to be able to step back and analyze what you're writing so that exactly the purpose of that piece of writing achieves the result. And the result should hopefully be positive and not create more problems than what there may be. All right, so in a business sense, just consider your power if you can create reality with words. This sounds like hocus pocus until you realize that people might forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Because words make you feel things. They're not just words. They have all these connotations attached to them, including strange things like punctuation, which also has a tone. So where are you? Exclamation mark time 50. Like, that's a really obvious tone. Whereas where are you? Question mark is fairly neutral. Just, I can't find you. So part of understanding the power that you have within your job, within your family, within relationships between co-workers, even at home, you have so much power just with words, including words you don't use. So even keeping quiet can sometimes have that immense power. So I just wanted you to put into context why Dan wanted someone to do this kind of workshop, because I think, he realizes that the success of this company really depends on how people interact with each other and with clients, and just building an environment that is successful, whether it's interpersonal or whether it's financial. Success really hinges on everyone working as a team. And so if you can create a positive reality within a team and with clients, it's a very powerful thing. All right, so we're going to start off with just some silly stuff. These are all things you can look up. Spell check doesn't always catch these things because spell check is looking for spelling. And sometimes these might not be spelling problems, just meaning problems. And so some common mistakes, when to use I and when to use me and when to use myself. Not hugely complicated if you just go through a couple of steps. Usually, I is at the beginning of the sentence or is part of your subject, and me is usually at the end. Right? And myself always has to refer to me in the beginning. Okay, so you can see the standard. Email Dan about the contract and CC me. Okay, you won't say CC I. Okay, I made a copy of the contract for myself. Myself has to reflect back to I. You won't say make a copy for me. And Erin and I worked on the website. So you can see that usually me is after I. And if you take out another person's name, so you can say Erin and I. If you can take out Erin and you can say I worked on the website and it sounds correct, it's correct. But if you say me worked on the website, you sound like maybe lived in a cave once upon a time. So the easiest way is just to take out something and just go, oh, does this sound correct? So usually I is before the verb. I worked on the website, and then myself refers to a prior me, just reflexive. This was one of the specifics that Dan wanted to be covered for some people. I mean, everyone's at a different level with writing, so it just depends on, you know, this might be something absolutely easy. There are no written rules about this. It's almost just like a subconscious language skill, which makes it very difficult if you're dealing with people who might have English as a second language, because a lot of this is just, you know, you've read enough, you've heard enough, where you go, no, I'm not going to say me worked on the website. I'm going to go, I, even though I'm referring to myself. Some very commonly confused words. The easiest way to figure one out is always to take this one with the apostrophe. It's called a contraction, and that apostrophe is just standing in place of a missing letter. And it's part of fairly casual language. You know, we're going to the mall. They're going to be having dinner. It's fairly informal. Usually not part of formal writing. So if you're putting together a proposal for an architect, you probably won't use the contractions, you know, we're, there, those things. But if there's an apostrophe there, it usually means something is missing. And then there with an I just always see that little I as a person. It has to belong to somebody. So, you know, this is their bottle of water. Where are you? I'm over there. So, but that little I in the middle there, I just remember that's the person. It has to be a pronoun. This is one of the most common mistakes. It's usually made when you're in a hurry. So it doesn't mean that you don't know it. It's just like you're just writing so quickly, your brain is, you know, like ahead of itself. But hopefully when you go back and read your emails before you send them, or put them on a 30-second delay, go back and just check that, because this one and the your, those two, if someone's trying to like get you, they're going to look at those two and make a judgment. Don't know why. It's just there. All right. What's the difference? It's and it's.
It is.
It is. It. The ITS is like it's money or it's bag or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's
The apostrophe essentially is a sign, hidden apostrophe for that one.
Yeah.
For possession.
And this is the one rule in English that just holds true, is that usually it stands in place of something missing, or it's a personal pronoun. Like this is my mother's car, mother, apostrophe S. So in English, it's very rare to have like hard and fast rules. There's always like this exception. But with that apostrophe, usually something is missing. It is. And then it's, the cat licked its paws. It's not going to be the second one, because that would mean the cat licked it is paws, and you just go, no, that doesn't sound right. All right, what about these ones? Your and your. Again, you just look for the obvious, just go, which one is it? Is this you are glasses? No, these are yours. So that little apostrophe is always just a little trick to go, okay, something's missing in this word. But there and your, these two I see the most. I see them the most when people rant on Facebook or some other social thing, and they always make this mistake, and immediately you go, you shouldn't be ranting if you can't get that right. So just a judgment. All right, so we have were at the top. We were on our way home. We have we're with apostrophe, which is we are. And where? It's just direction. Where are you? Okay, so these are commonly mistaken. very difficult for a second language person to capture the slight change of were, where. I mean, it's so slight, but just hang on to the apostrophe and just go, we are. Something's missing. No, I'm not using that one. Yes, I am using that one. All right. Let's see. Can we guess the 14 punctuation marks that you could possibly use? Yeah, let's see if we can get 14. So,
Like, it was one of them.
Period.
Semicolon,
point.
colon,
Apostrophe,
Question mark.
question.
exclamation point.
parentheses.
I don't like
Addition.
keyboard.
Addition.
Oh, you're looking at the keyboard. I like that. Oh, we're thinking.
Oh, you got that like upside down
You
question
have,
mark.
you have
in
ones
the
that have two
Spanish
semicolons.
language.
Correct.
Colons.
Yeah.
You got the single apostrophe and then you got all the double
You have
apostrophe
double
with bracket.
Yes.
Yes, and you have the brackets, the parentheses in American English are the curved ones, and they usually stand in place of, you can either use 2 commas, or you can use parentheses, or you can use what is called the M dash, the very long dash. Those 3 can be interchanged depending on what's your favorite.
Like for like a references or something?
So,
Because mostly you can only use parentheses.
so
I mean, I guess it depends on what one they're making you do.
correct, but you can say Bob, comma, and Jane, his daughter. So it's just kind of this, sticking it in there. So those little parentheses, just stick it in there. Or you can go Bob, comma, Jane, comma, his daughter, and then you're like, no, too many commas, so maybe parentheses is better. Or if you want to, you can use the long dash, the M dash, and you can set it on Google Drive if you like to use it. Bob, comma, and Jane, long dash, his daughter, long dash. So those 3 can be intermixed depending on your reason. There are also brackets that are square brackets. And in English, we usually use those if we are quoting, but we've changed the tense of something but not the meaning. So if in the text it said, Bob said, but I don't want it to be Bob said because it's not going to be right in my sentence, I'll go he, meaning Bob. So that is usually used in quoting or in some technical writing. So maybe architects, scientists might use that square bracket. And then you've got the strange curly one, very seldom used, but used often in coding, computer language, grouping things together. So, and then with the dash, you have the short one that might be blending like 25 together, short, okay. Slightly longer, the N dash, like the San Francisco to Boston train is going to be late. And then you've got the long M dash, which is like a comma. So nothing hugely important, but punctuation is important because it does it does change the tone, right? So if you say, let's eat grandma, are you being clear? Yeah, it's readable. Is it credible? No, it sounds horrible. But if you say, let's eat, comma, grandma, it's like, come on, grandma, we're hungry. So punctuation has a function, and the function is usually just clarity. So it's not that you have to memorize anything. It's just, where would I take a pause here? Usually it's breath. Like, where am I going to let the sentence breathe?
Oh, if you're the big bad wolf, we're gonna eat grandma.
Right. So yeah, it depends on who you are.
Right.
Yeah. Commas are fairly simple. We use them a lot. You know, the game was over, but the crowd refused to leave. It's just a breath. It's not a rule. You don't have to put it there, but it sounds better. It's just easier to read. Yesterday was her birthday, so they went out to dinner. it sort of slows things down and makes it clear. You could just use the conjunction, but commas just are very functional in writing because it allows you to have clarity. It separates things out so that you can see what is being said.
Does it make you like write not in the passive, but more in the not in the passive tense?
It just depends on how you do it. But for example, passive tense means that you put what usually would be at the end in the beginning. So if I said, although I hate vegetables, comma, I will eat these peas, that's passive. Whereas active would be, I will eat these peas even though I hate vegetables. Like, it's got a far more, like it's got a stronger tone to it. But yes, commas definitely will separate in the passive. That first part that's not 100% necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I seem to write passive.
And we're going to touch on that briefly. It's a strange concept, but once you realize the power of mixing active and passive, and once you realize that you can actually mirror how people communicate with you, usually if a person has an accent that's not American, they're used to a more passive style of writing. So just to be able to blend that in, to maybe form some connection in the beginning with whoever your client or audience is. All right, another form of the comma. I was not taught this at school. I found this out in America. I think it's awesome. It's called the Oxford comma. So the Oxford comma is when you separate everything out for clarity. So in the first one, valedictorian, I want to thank my parents, Mary and God. And it sounds like God is your parent, all right? So it's not like totally clear, even though we all know, okay, that's silly. But if you do the Oxford comma, I want to thank my parents, Mary, and that one after Mary, before the and, that is called the Oxford comma, and God. Okay, it separates things out. This is sort of the standard use of the comma in most writing here. Okay, so it just makes things clear. The only rule is that you're being clear, that the person understands what you're writing. So we use commas after introductory clauses or phrases. While I was eating, the cat scratched at the door. To get a seat, you had better come early. Well, perhaps he meant no harm. The rule is, it just needs to provide clarity. You'll also use it to separate out long phrases, long sentences. For example, the Constitution establishes the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. And then it also can be, again, just like parentheses. My friend Jessica, who lives in Connecticut, and that could be parentheses or that big long M dash on either side. My friend Jessica, who lives in Connecticut, is a yoga teacher. Right. That who lives in Connecticut is not essential to the sentence, but it's obviously adding something to somebody. So there's the use of that. All right, this is a very powerful, strange little piece of punctuation. It links two ideas without using a conjunction. I like peas, you like carrots. This one can be used in place of a period, the full stop, unlike the colon, which is always going to tell you more. So for example, please attach the following, and that colon tells you from now on, everything I'm telling you is a list or it's additional information. You won't use a semicolon here. So please attach the following: resume, cover letter, and transcripts. Another example of a colon: a woman without her man is nothing. A woman, now we have a list, without her man is nothing. So it just changes the tone. Okay. colons and semicolons are not similar. They look the same. One's called a semicolon. Like they even sound like they should be friends, but the colon always just says more information. Semicolon just says, I could have used and or but, I could have used the period, I could have used parentheses, I could have used the em dash, but I'm the author and I'm using this. So all of those at the bottom there, they're all interchangeable depending on what you want to do. You can even interchange it with what is called the ellipsis, the three little dots, which creates hesitancy. I'd like to invite you out to dinner, ... Thursday night, ... Like it creates hesitancy. Whereas if I said, I'd like to invite you for dinner, period, Thursday. So they just have different tones to them. Right, here we have our hyphens, and the dashes are sort of part of all of this. They join or clarify things. So if you have 25 $1 bills, it's very different from 20 $5 bills. Okay, so you've got to use your dash carefully. The rule is usually that the two words that are descriptive before the noun, the bills, usually become compound. So if I say it's back to school night, then the back to school gets the hyphens, back to school, right? But if I say, we are going back to school, they separate. But back to school, once it's describing the night, that's when they become hyphenated. And you can see the difference. There's a difference between a man eating chicken and a man eating chicken. So hyphens make a difference as to how you interpret something. Apostrophes, contractions, apostrophe S for that is, or any other combination. The wonderful thing about English is you can pretty much break all the rules with with contractions, especially if you're doing novel writing, or if you journal, or if you are just sending a casual email to a friend. You can really use contractions. And then it also shows that it belongs to somebody. So my mother's car and my brother's game. If there's an S at the end, you usually won't double the S. You'll just have that single S. So I have two brothers and it's my brother's game. All right, so these are some of the common writing errors. I see these the most even in very highly skilled students who all doing AP, all have great GPAs. These are the things that I see. So I don't know, you guys might all be fabulous writers, but this is just what I've identified as, these things are the ones that I see the most. So often see repetition of the same words that are close to each other, or people who use long or foreign words incorrectly. You just don't have to use long or foreign words. They don't make anything sound easier. Number 3, people who exaggerate by saying always, or just generalizing or being too dramatic in their writing. Number 4, using what I call rest in peace words that really don't belong in general writing, like stuff, nice, dude, hey. These are fine if you're texting and it's just a joke, but in business emails might not sound good. And then if you mix your metaphors, like you're like, oh, I remember my grandmother used to say, he's as strong as a, no, like just don't do it. All right. And then in your emails, having tons of punctuation to get your message across, and fonts and all caps, like, I'm just really going to get them. Or colors. I'm going to start off with this, and then my signature is going to be that, and it's going to look great. these are all fun things to do, but just in business correspondence, keep it as plain as possible, Times New Roman, like really clean cut, fairly undramatic, and just for number one, just look for synonyms if you can find something that works. This is very common, even though when you read the examples, you're like, I've never done that. But it's so common. Fragment sentences are just unclear. So for example, the first one, for doing freelance work for a competitor, got Phil fired. Because you're trying to say Phil got fired because he was doing freelance work, but you just wrote this incomplete sentence. Easiest way is just rearrange it so it sounds clear. Phil got fired for doing freelance work with a competitor. If you're not sure, the place to always check is Purdue University's OWL online writing lab. This is used by all universities, all writing, like OWL Purdue is the place to go. So if you're ever not sure, and it's very easy to use, you just put in OWL Purdue, comes up, and you just put in there sentence fragments or how to use a semicolon, whatever it is.
How come when they do their papers in Alphabet, like you have to like separate everything? Why did they do it?
It's like
like you're writing your middle, and then you have to have a sentence, and then you have to they fragment it quite a bit. You see them? I have to do it for my master's, and they like make you fragment.
I don't know, because because fragmenting,
Not fragmenting, but you section it. Like you have to each section you have, you like indent, and then you section. Like I don't know. I just never. It's like I don't know why they do it, but it's an out because I had to like print out stuff to do it.
Yeah. You can perhaps show me what you mean, because that would be worth finding out.
All right.
Yeah. Usually things are sectioned for clarity, and if you're quoting very long pieces of text, you fragment it even more so that it stands in a block.
It's more like paragraphs. They like fragment like all your they give your writings about mine's accounting, so then you like do which is right. Can't do it.
Rather you than me.
Yeah, I'll show you, but it's like they have a certain way you do it.
And which brings us to an important point which we touched on last time. It just depends on the purpose of writing. So if the purpose of writing is technical, such as with accounting or math or scientific stuff, there's going to be different rules that are standard that are going to be different from journalism or other things. So each genre has sort of its own expectations and what is acceptable. But fragment sentences are just incomplete. You're just slightly confused. And the easiest way is just to maybe rearrange the words. Because, if you're thinking, I don't know where a preposition goes, what's a direct object, I don't have time to figure this out, just reword it so that it's simpler. All right, so here are some examples. Let's just pick one. Number 2. One of my friends who won a contest by playing a variety of instruments like guitar and piano. How do we just make that sound more professional?
Take out the playing a variety of instruments.
Yeah.
One of my friends won a contest playing
You
guitar
want to
and
comment
piano.
after friend.
One of my friends won a contest by playing multiple instruments for writing it. It's like guitar and piano, like Michelle said.
Put like a colon or something in there.
Basically,
After.
period.
A comma, yeah. Yeah. You can say one of my friends who won a contest by playing a variety of instruments like guitar and piano was very happy that that happened. Like you can just extend the sentence, or you can put in some punctuation, or you can take something out. do we really need to know guitar and piano? We might not need to know because variety already covers that. So just look at it and go, what would make this clear? Am I being too wordy? Do you really need to know all of this information? Can I make it a little bit shorter, especially in business? If you're writing a story, maybe having a longer sentence might be better. But fragment sentences just sit there and they make no sense. Because if I said to you, like guitar and piano, you'd be like, what? What do you mean? So that's when you know, let me tie this all together.
My first one was like, who went out of business?
Correct. You're just like, Yeah, who?
First part of the sentence is gone.
Yeah. So this is so common, especially in student writing. I see this all the time. And I'm like, did you not read this back to yourself? Because this makes no sense.
Where are we starting with the verb?
Correct. Instead of starting with the subject. Yeah. So, for example, if you said Dutch Bros went out of business after Starbucks opened, and that was a calamity to every high school student. So, just make it complete so we understand. Run-on sentences. These are not just sentences that are too long. These are sentences that don't have the correct punctuation. So you've just made this big long sentence and it's awkward. It's just, it doesn't have clarity and you don't quite know what the person is referring to. So for example, they weren't students, they were cops in disguise. It's not a terrible sentence, but to take it to the next level, it would be easier if you said they weren't students, semicolon. They were cops in disguise. Or they weren't students, big long M dash. They were cops in disguise. Number two, I didn't know which job to take. The choices were very confusing. You might speak like that, but in the written version, you should say, I didn't know which job to take, semicolon. The choices were very confusing. Or you could do a conjunction. Which job to take because, the choices were very confusing. So just look at your sentence and, is this the most professional way I could say something? So separate them, add a conjunction, a semicolon, or just reword it. If you're just like, oh, this is all awkward, I just need to find a better way to say this. All right, the dangling participle. You don't have to remember about dangling. It's just that you don't know what is happening. After rotting in the cellar, my brother brought up the peaches. Was your brother rotting in the cellar? Were the peaches rotting? I mean, we know, of course, it was peaches, but you need to always make sure that the noun is referred to correctly. All right. We've all had that where you're like, you've said he or she so many times, it's like, who are you talking about? So this dangling participle is, we're not quite sure exactly who the subject is. In business, this is quite important because you want to make sure that who's ever reading this knows, no, I'm talking about Danco. No, I'm talking about the architect in San Francisco. No, I'm talking about this paycheck on May the 9th. All right, so just being very specific about who the subject is makes everything much clearer. Another one. By the way, dangler is not an English term. It's just a word I thought seemed nice. Having finished his work, the TV was turned on. Okay, it's just awkward, right? So, having finished his work, Bob turned on the TV. Then we know, okay, we know who the actual subject was doing what. So just make it clear. This one is very, very touchy right now, especially when we're dealing with gender neutral conversations. Okay, I do not have to deal with this a lot in our school, But in some schools, this is an issue, and in a lot of workplaces, this is an issue. So you sort of have to put your own mindset somewhere else and just go, okay, these pronouns have changed a little bit. For example, gender neutral pronouns are complex. His or her has now been replaced by their. This used to be a rule that people say, no, you can't use their if you're talking about Bob and Jill put their raincoats on the table. You'd have to say Bob and Jill put his and her raincoats on the table. Now there is used because we can't make assumptions that Bob is a boy or Jill is a girl. So this language is sort of very complicated. I am not an expert on these gender neutral pronouns, but there is a list of them, and they seem random to me. Some of them start with Z's. Some of them start with, like, I don't know what to do with them. And I hope I don't ever have to like make this decision because it's very complicated. So if you are not sure the correct pronoun, if you're talking about his or her and you don't really know, the correct one is there. So just something, new. And I can remember there, and I know that it's not offensive, if someone wants me to refer to them as their. But generally, when you're talking about the pronoun and what it's referring to, it should agree in numbers. So I put my jacket on. Gender, he put his jacket on. If you're not sure, there. I have heard one student in another school refer to, and I thought, assumed she was a girl, but she referred to herself as there. So this was a new experience for me, and I just have to respect that, everyone has the right to, refer to themselves, like identify. And I just have to put my way of thinking, just go there. So I've got to be there, and you can be there too. And then it needs to agree in person. So for example, if I'm talking about the first person, that's I. If I'm talking in the second person, it's you or your. And if I'm talking in the third person, it's them and their. So these are usually mistakes made by second language people, maybe getting mixed up with his and her. I hear that a lot. Or just, not knowing how many people and should I go singular or plural. If you said the soccer coach and the whole team went to their game, the pronoun has to agree with the last noun that it's closest to. So that's generally the rule. But those are all things. If you go to Al Purdue, you could look up and just go this, pronoun agreements. These are easy mistakes to make. For example, the box of ornaments belongs in the attic. Your brain is automatically thinking ornaments plural, but really the subject is the box, which is one. So always just think, what is my subject and how am I matching it with the verb? The woman walks. The book is boring. Okay, don't be misled by the chapters. Just the book is boring. The chapters are boring because there's lots of them, and either is correct because either is actually one or the other. So these are just easy ways for you to figure out, with my verb, is it plural or not? Just go, what is the absolute subject? Box belongs, woman walks. Just separate the whole sentence out. If you're confused, change the sentence. Just rework it. All right, how are you guys doing? Yep, you good? Right. The most important thing about tenses is just to be consistent. You can change tenses within a paragraph, but in a sentence, the tense should be consistent. So, for example, about noon the sky darkened. A breeze sprang up and a low rumble announces the approaching storm. If I started with darkened, then I need to have announced. I need to stay in that ed moment. If I viewed, then I should portrayed. If I climbed out of the car and prepared to meet the parents, but instead a large honey-colored dog ran to meet me at the door. Don't shift these tenses within a sentence. And this is an easy mistake to make if you're typing very quickly, writing a letter very quickly, like, you're just thinking, send me this information, but the whole sentence has already been in the past tense. Just make sure that your tenses all match up with just within the sentence. All right, so the most important idea right here is just that you have the ability to control your sentences for effect. That is it. There is no absolute way of writing anything. Writers have a lot of control, including starting books with and, which your English teacher probably told you never to do. But whatever you're doing, you just need to think, what is the effect that I want from this piece of writing? So your goal is just to be clear and effective. So if Dan Johnson is sending an email, subject comes first, instructions are clear. You sound rushed if you use this all the time, and it can be very monotonous. This active tense is very monotonous, but it gets the job done. This is A personalities. Passive. Generally, maybe people from other countries other than America often use this style of talking. Firstly, think of your subject and be clear on your instructions so that you don't sound rushed. Giving thanks or breaking bad news, very good with this passive, all right, is something you don't want to rush, so use this passive voice to your advantage. Right? People from Africa, people from Asia sometimes like this more passive introduction because it sounds like you're not rushing them. However, you can do this introduction. Unfortunately, Dr. Wong, the roofers will not be there on Friday as we had planned. However, this is what is going to happen. And then you can go into active. On Monday morning, they'll be there at 7. If you would have your car moved out of the driveway, they'll be finished by 4:30. So you can choose this, how to mix it 80-20. In business, I would say 80% just be active because you're trying to get the job done. But if you are wanting to recruit people to volunteer to clean the beaches, or if you want people to donate money, use some of that passive because it sounds a little bit more thoughtful and gentle. Okay. The most important thing is to perhaps mirror how someone starts their first email with you or correspondence. Mirror it, and then you can start to back off and go into your style. So in the first email Erin sent me, she said, "Hello, my name is Erin, and I'm with Danco, and Dan Johnson would like for us to put together some kind of workshop just to go over some basic things." Now, when she and I email, it's like, "I'll be there at 3:30. Is this hooked up?" So now it's just all active. It's just detail. So, for example, this is very active. Hi. A meeting to discuss the freshwater project is on the 29th at 4 p.m. in the downstairs conference room. Bring the following: ABC. Email Cindy today if you cannot make the meeting, Dan. All right? And in the subject, she's very clear about what it is. Team meeting, date and time. All right. All right. This is awesome if you just want things done quickly. All right. But he's thanking people for helping at the beach. Can't be like boom, boom, boom. Hi, team. As you know, the commitment to keeping our environment clean is a promise that Danco has upheld through our Clean Our Beach project. It was amazing to see how many volunteers showed up on Saturday, many with friends and children to share in the experience. Thanks for the energy that each one of you brings to this project. See you next month. Happy little exclamation mark, because he really wants to be there next month. This is more passive because it's a thank you. If it was bad news, this is also a better style, unfortunately. So it's got a softer tone. If it's all passive, it becomes very sleepy. So it's kind of nice to mix it up a little bit. All right, so just to finish off, these are some ideas that could work. And you just try on and see what works for you, because we all bring our own personalities and preferences to whatever we do. Some business misconceptions. In a very ordinary world, that's always you versus me. So if I'm right, then you must be wrong. All right? We're going to win, which means, oh, Ferndale, you're going to lose. Sorry. I know you are. That was a lovely moment for me. All right. Name and shame is the name of the game. This is sort of how business goes. You know, like, we've got to win. We've got to do this. I've got to save face. So I need to tell my side of the story so I don't get blamed. So we're so used to this ordinary world of you or me. Okay. However, there is an extraordinary world, and it is so simple to do, where it's you and me. So where there is inclusion and tolerance, where your words really fall into respectful language, because this kind of respectful language makes you step forward to see someone or some project as the absolute possibility that it could be. And this is the goal of a good company, a good mother, a good parent, a good anything, like, to be able to have this support of the possibility of something being great. An extraordinary world will acknowledge the dignity of what the team does. So it doesn't matter if you're the guys putting mulch out on the landscaping. It doesn't matter if you're Dan Johnson. Like, the dignity and each piece of what the team does should be acknowledged in the words, because the word creates that scenario. And in an extraordinary world, I'm actually interested in what matters to you. So I'm actually interested in making sure that Dr. Wong knows that unfortunately the roofers won't be there, and how I know this is a big deal to him because he took off work and that, but for sure Monday. So I need to step into his world and make some kind of connection. Unfortunately, as human beings, the past always happens now when I put it into words, and then I retell it over and over until I believe it. So this is what happened, this is what happened. And I keep reinforcing this language. And because I'm so sure of this is what happened and my emotions, I make that story real, and then I send that email. Or I have that conversation that perhaps I might regret because, oh, I didn't realize that was your part of the story. I didn't know that all of this was happening. I didn't realize that the reason you didn't show up was because of this. So in business, I would say we need to think very clearly of how we assess a situation, so that when we send an email, we are as factual or as neutral as we possibly can be. The goal is really that your words create a space where everyone wins or feels heard. Even if you think they're wrong, or even if you're not agreeing on how it's going to go, at least when someone feels heard and the language is fairly neutral, you can come to some kind of agreement, or there's a space there for de-escalation of emotions. And the words that I choose invite others to hear the possibilities. So this is why great leaders, You know, when you think about people whose speeches touch you, you always think about Martin Luther King Jr. because he says, I have a dream. And then he just sells you this dream. And you're like, whoa, the possibility of that is incredible. So whatever words you use, whether it's writing or speaking, should really open up these possibilities for people. And sometimes if there's been a mistake, that possibility will be for them to save face. Because when people have that dignity, when they're saving face for other people, it just makes everything a little bit easier. All right, so this is a really hard thing to get your head around. My story about what has happened is a game I pretend is real. Because facts are very different from the story about the facts. And what is real, such as the universe and trees, is very different and very independent of language. We just use words to label things. So I could label you as an employee of Danco, or I could say, when she walked in, she gave me that look. It was a strange look. And, you know, I really think that, I think Michelle's snobbish. So now I just label her, all right? This is a pretend thing. I've just labeled her. I've just chosen all these words. Now I've created this reality. So next week when I show up and she, you know, doesn't see me or walks past, I'm like, snobbish, look at that. She ignored me. There we go. So now I've just created this whole story. So, so just in business, just consider that when you are corresponding with someone, that you get into their world, acknowledge what matters to them. As a team, be in agreement with what the goals are, even if you know you don't all have the same ideas and you might differ. Just be in agreement with what the goals are at Danco, which is exceptional customer service, being a success in the community, whatever that looks like. And then from the person who's lowest on the totem pole to the person who's highest, there should be the space for leadership and respect. So whatever the language, whatever the behavior, you don't know what someone could become or what their potential is, and you really, from the very beginning, want to establish that respect through language. And each person in the team is responsible that everyone gets it. In the classroom, I'm responsible for all students getting it. So some are going to get it quicker than others, some are going to get more than others because they're more interested, but I'm responsible that everyone gets it. And so I have to hold myself accountable for every mistake that is made in the classroom that might not have been my mistake. I still have to be accountable. And I have to figure out, oh my goodness, next time maybe I should be clearer. How can I help you? What did you not understand? Yeah, that's a mistake I could see that could be made. Let's do it this way. So I have to hold myself accountable for every mistake. And it's a very strange thing because you think it's not my fault the dog ate your homework. You know, like, why are you telling me this? It's easy to be dismissive, but when I'm accountable, I can't dismiss it because it's actually my problem and I need to fix it with as much dignity as possible. I think this is the final quote. All the ways of transformation are based in language, which is a pretty big deal when you consider the power of, you know, how you communicate with people either through texts or casually or formally, and most importantly when you're angry. You know, when you're frustrated. You know, if I get a text from a parent like, my child said they handed in their homework, immediately I'm going, no, Kieran never handed in his homework. I know he did not. I can't communicate like that because that is not, I have to hold myself accountable. Like, absolutely. I will check with Karen. I'll make sure that if you forgot to hand it in or if I've misplaced it, I'll make sure that that is graded and put into the grade book immediately. Because I don't want to be fighting. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know what the reality is really. So you can transform a team of any group of people just through the language that is used and becomes the common language throughout the company. All right, people, you deserve big kudos after a long day. But I really appreciate your
Thanks for coming in.
your time
Thank
and attention. Feedback for me. What did you that
Oh, that must be Haley on the phone.
Oh.
Okay.
No
Let's
problem.
pull them up on so we can see their faces now. Oops. Oh, there she is.
Hey, Haley.
Hello. I knew you would. Hi there. Any feedback as to what is redundant? You absolutely knew this and did not need to find that out again.
I paid a lot of attention to the grammar stuff. Like, I read a lot on the internet too, so the there, the
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
all those things. It's good reinforcement. Recall.
Yeah, and if grammar's not your thing, just reword the sentence and make it as simple as possible, because simplicity in language is powerful. So, anything for you that was redundant? Like,
Well, it's like I've had like basic English, but it's good to relook at it again. I know there's members of this team that I intercepted someone's letter that was going out subcontractors. Like, oh my God, have you not even had basic English before? I just kind of looked at it, helped her rewrite it and stuff, so it looked nicer going out. It's like, this is not going down to subs. It's horrible. But it's good to have all that come back. Just a refresher occasionally to know all that.
Yeah.
You do need that occasionally, that whole refresher.
and really, if you do sit with a situation where someone is struggling with language, just go into that active voice and just be very simple. Okay, dear subs, I need the following. Lean release, da, 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 da. Thank you very much, Georgia. Like, super simple. Because then you're not gonna like,
Use
oh,
things. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, these are like round sentences, fragment sentences, poor grammar, not even using apostrophes or anything, right? Misspelled words. It's like, oh my God.
Sometimes the kids that work with us, like you'll get CC'd on an email, but they use more like they're texting words, if it not a sentence. Like, they're talking like really short, but too short. They're
Right.
just like more like texting in an email, and you're like, oh, and it's to a bank. You're just like, I think that's gonna fly.
Yeah.
So sometimes that stuff, I think it's always good to get a
yeah.
refresher.
I like the active and passive part of it too. That I didn't know much about, so that was interesting.
Yeah.
Communicate, yeah.
Yeah, I went home, pulled out my business communications book last week looking for like full triangle and stuff. I didn't see it, but it was like active passive at one point, like active versus passive. All that, it's like hitting at me.
It's hard because I write very passively, and to change to more act, like I have to think about it, because I would probably I write more 100% passive, and then I have to change some sentences to the active.
Right.
Because I
You
write.
need to respond. You need them to. You need something
Yeah.
to come from it. Yeah.
But when I write
Oh.
all passive.
I want to write all active, and then I reread it. I'm like, oh, I saw.
Yeah,
I
because
think
it's
sometimes you have to recognize how
Yeah.
you write, and that way so you can change some of it, because it's intrinsic to who you are, but
correct.
but knowing how you write and then recognizing how do you change it to a more just so you can get your point across.
Dan will come in and like he'll tell me a response well, tell them to F off. And so obviously I have to turn that around in different words.
Well, and Dan, like, his are like, and you're like, it'll say done, and you're like, done good? Done bad? Like, is that, you
Or you
know?
said you asked them a question, like, do you want this or that?
No, you can't do that. You can't do, I've learned that. You can't ask him a two-part question. It's got to be like a yes or no.
Emoji. And you're just like, is that, I guess that's good. It's a smiley emoji.
I do love emojis. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a game changer.
And a lot right now, like, okay, subsistence, the subject, subsistence. And I do a screenshot sometimes it's at the bank, and I get back, done. We're like, good, we're getting paid tomorrow
Code.
or whatever.
But that's not the kind of language or the kind of communication you would have with the external world. And so,
No, it's
but
Yeah.
sometimes you do wonder. You're like,
yeah.
And I mean, that's an important point, is just to recognize, are you being clear? Because it's a funny feeling when you get an email back or you just get something, you're like, I'm not really sure what that means.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's just so important to reread what you have written, because sometimes I'll be like, what am I talking about? I'm confusing myself. I'm definitely going to confuse the person who's receiving the email.
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to write, just to clarify, and then you have to do your whole thing. And
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah, I'll pull that on Dan sometimes, like, what are you asking, or what are you telling me to do? So I'll send it back, is this what you want me to do? And it's like, yes or no.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I don't like going back and forth, and I can't stand being confused.
Mhm.
And I just want to know, okay, what needs to be done and when does it need to be done by, and how. If you can give me an example, that would be awesome, so I can do a great job. So to me, just being clear saves a whole lot of back and forth. So
And the miscommunication of tone, you know, if
Yeah.
you're only active, you think that might be like a more efficient way to communicate, but it's actually hindering your ability to connect or to understand the audience. So just making sure that you are not being, you're not forfeiting relationship for effectiveness, or
correct.
actually you're forfeiting effectiveness for active voice.
Correct. And that's why you can just mix it up a tiny bit. And sometimes punctuation can do that for you as well. But, you know, thanks with a little exclamation mark is a little bit friendlier, or if you start off with hi. So just mixing them up. So, yeah, the tone is just a friendlier tone. It doesn't have to be a longer email, but it should at least sound like, oh, there's smiling going on here, or there's nodding of the head with this email, because you can't see the person obviously, but your email should have a tone. I don't know, just be some respect or some personality that's just not so boom, boom, boom.
what is your take on like the bottom, like, so now everybody has signatures in their emails. So a lot of people just put like thanks, but then the signature, but they don't put their name, or like say best, comma, but just the signature. And I just find that weird. So I usually put my name, but it like, or do you have to, does it matter? Because most people lately I've seen don't put their name, they just have the signature.
Well, it could be redundant.
Yeah, and I think that's why they don't do it.
Yeah.
It just looks good.
And some people are just, they know that you know that it's me. So they won't go, oh, Michelle. It'll just be, all right, we'll be there at 4:00, thanks.
Oh, like you mean, you say thanks, Daphne, like you type Daphne and then underneath is.
Well, then it says Daphne. I mean, I don't know. I try to switch it up, but sometimes I guess
I
if
never
I
really thought
don't,
about it that way.
I don't know them that well, I put Daphne just because I think it's, I guess, more formal. I know them, I probably don't do that.
Yeah.
But I notice a lot of people just say best. Like, they just do that.
Well, if at least because it's your email signature, so you have it just automatically inserted rather than written out each time.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're writing a signature and then also automatically inserting a signature. So you would have two.
But
in
it's going out
effect.
to like Boston Capital and like, I mean, bigger companies. I mean, I don't I guess your signature is your signature,
Right.
and everybody has that, but most people like still write the name, even though like it's not signed or anything. But
I think what works for me personally is making sure that the font that I use in my email matches my name, the font of my name in my signature. So it always automatically looks like that's part of my email. And then,
because ours doesn't match.
because that, I don't know,
Well, that makes more.
because then it just looks like you've put your name.
Why maybe that's why it looks weird to me, because it's not. It doesn't match like what you're writing. So then I'm like,
Yeah.
and I never know. So I usually will. Lately, I've been writing my name because I'll look at it. And be like,
Yeah. And that's also because
okay.
if you write more in the passive, you're usually more emotionally connected to what you're writing about. Whereas when you write a lot in the active, you're just connected to get it done, and you don't care about your signature really, because you're just trying to get this done. So that's probably why it like worries you a little bit, but it worries me too, and that's why I changed the font. I'm like, no, when it says Jane Smith, St. Bernard's, I make sure St. Bernard's is separated a little bit so that it always looks like I've written my name.
So you could just change that font and then have the Danco be.
Like a space below.
Yeah. So, but that's just me because I kind of connect with what you're saying.
Right.
Like
Like an unfinished look. Is that what you're kind of worried about? Like you said, like best, and then
It just
the
doesn't
signature
look
doesn't
right.
look like it's part
It
of the same
looks
body. So
like
it's
impersonal.
and polished.
Maybe that's what it just
Yeah.
doesn't look right to me. So usually lately I mean I just write, like if it's to my sister I'll just say thank, but like if it's to somebody else I usually will write Daphne at the bottom. But that matches like what I'm writing,
right.
So like
I
12.
remember struggling with that when I first started working. But what do I do? And then I just got used to doing things.
But I've seen it all different. I mean, there doesn't seem to be like a rule for it because I've seen it
I think it's
all
helpful
different ways.
if you go by like a nickname. So like if your signature says like Gabriel, but you prefer Gabe, or you're okay with Gabe, then saying thanks Gabe and then having Gabriel whole name.
I write Daph, but I don't think I would say that.
Yeah.
I usually write Daph. So
Yeah, I don't think
that would be.
Yeah.
Right,
And
that'd
That'd be too informal to put Daph on like Boston Capital and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you good friends with Emily Moraga yet, or you just want to stay professional?
I'm pretty good friends with the people I know, but they're a bigger company.
So I'm gonna just stop the recording, and I actually gotta get going here in a minute. But if you guys want to keep going and keep the recording going, that's good.
I think we're done. Any comments, Haley?
I just want to say that the Oxford comma, I have been told that is wrong my whole life. So that is like so nice to hear that maybe I wasn't crazy.
No, you're not crazy at all. I love the Oxford comma.
Yeah, it actually was good. There was a few things that were different from what we learned growing up.
Yeah, but the bottom line is it just needs to be clear because people are going to tell you all sorts of different things. But if it looks clear to you, then perhaps it could be a rule. That's really how it goes with English.
Yeah, I kind of like it when you have list. I'll put that column before the last one in.
Yeah, it's just.
It just separates it.
Is the Oxford comma something that isn't done in the States as much? Because I've always grown up with Oxford comma, and actually working here, I was surprised, like in the platinum standards, it's not there, and it kept like tripping me up, like where is it? And I was like kind of surprised that most people in here aren't.
Yeah, we were told it was always optional.
Yeah.
It was, you could either have one before the and or not.
I have a foreign mother, so it's possible. I just.
If you spell check, I mean, it sometimes fits it in.
Yeah, again, it's English, so the rules are, who's English? But to me, the Oxford comma just clarifies it because I grew up not doing that. And then a couple of years ago, I saw this. I'm like, why do they do that? That looks weird. And then I went to research the Oxford comma and I went, no, this is great. This is very clear. So you're not crazy, Haley. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.